volume and coming over to the broadcast. Greetings and salutations, everyone. Welcome back to the Inn of Planar Crossroads. This time on Around the Hearth, we are talking about creatures from the range of CR7 to 8 that we are going to kind of give our thoughts on and everything like that. Ones that we'd like to highlight. First off, let's get announcements done. So, both myself and Tommy from Black Dragon Gaming, we have our Patreons going, so you can check either one of them out at Patreon. Ours is the Inn of Planar Crossroads. His is Black Dragon Gaming. You can find them both there. Rewards for each tier type thing and stuff like that. But only if you enjoy the content. Alright? Disclaimer. We are adults, and sometimes those adults use adult language, so parental discretion is advised. Let me see. I already talked about what our current video is. The Inn of Planar Crossroads is going to have a subscriber appreciation one-shot when we hit 100 subscribers, and we are currently at 98. So if we just get a couple more, Kane will run a one-shot for some of the subscribers. I think he's going to get 4 people.
Anyone who is watching this, try to subscribe to the channel within a day or two, so this can happen faster.
Yes.
Yeah, just click on it. It's just one boop, go. That's all it is.
That's all.
It is a simple click of a button. Do it, so we can have it ASAP, and we can see another GM a game for people.
Yes, and this is before he's even GM'd for us. So yeah, I'm gonna enjoy watching him GM. As far as the monthly giveaway, the Inn of Planar Crossroads will be giving theirs away near the end of the month. It is getting pretty close to the day we're going to announce winners and stuff. So if you do want to get in on that, that is something that is one of the rewards for our giant tier over on our Patreon. So links in the doobly-doo about that and getting over there if you guys want to get there. We have a new series that I've been announcing this past month, which is called Ghoulish Games. Broadcast. That is where Kane Greetings comes in and salutations, everyone. Welcome back. He's playing through Legend of Planar Crossroads. This time on Around the Hearth, we are talking about creatures from the range of CR7 to 8 that we are. Oh wait, no, that's me. Oh, that's me. Twitch turned up. Sorry.
Busted.
I was blaming other people. Okay. Kane is playing Ghoulish Games, running through Legend of Grimrock, but also Colin decided to do a playthrough of Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild on Master Mode. And to my understanding, that is like the difficult mode of it. And he's going to run through it on that. And he's going to go and try to do each shrine, so if someone's wanting to get an idea of the different shrines, if there's a demand for it, we may cut out the portions that have him doing that and put them in a separate playlist for those that want shrine walkthroughs on it. That is something that he suggested. We will see. And final announcement from me is going to be, we're going to make it to a con in St. Louis. I think it's over in the St. Charles area by St. Louis or something like that. And it is the St. Louis Comic-Con. There's a Facebook for it. You can get tickets to it, and you would see us there probably. We'll tool around a bit. We're also going to be doing some recording while we're up there, so you can expect some things of us actually being live in the room with each other, those of us that can, talking about different things, and we've got a special little type of video plan that we haven't had on either channel yet before. So, there's that. Tommy, do you have any other announcements that you need to put out there? When's your next giveaway happening?
Our next giveaway goes down at, and I might do one this summer, depending on like the direction things go and how much like extra money I have floating around, frankly, come June. But we've been doubling from 53. So the last giveaway went live at 212. So 424 subs, and we're at 250 today. So it might be a little while, but I think I'm either going to do for my next giveaway, it's going to be something like what I did for this last one for the character art, or I'm going to do something a little more like personal. Again, it never fails. I always hit my camera. It just sort of depends on where the channel's at, where I'm at, where like all my gaming groups are at, and really how fast our star rises. But yeah, it should be hopefully sooner rather than later. And again, this summer we like, if nothing else, I'll probably print some like it's really easy to get custom dice from Chessex. Just ask Joe; he has some for me. But I might do like a D6 with like my logo on the 6 and like throw them around Comic-Con and let people find them and stuff. So if nothing else, there is that.
Yeah, that sounds fun.
Other than that,
Johnny's
I don't really have
plan
any
is
like
to
crazy
litter.
announcements. Yes.
Look at the dangerous things people can slip on.
Yeah, that
Oops.
sounds like
It's not like I'm
a
throwing
great idea.
banana peels around the Comic-Con.
At least he's not
Throw
throwing
D6s.
D4s, you know? If he was throwing D4s...
Just caltrops everywhere.
At least with D4s, you can toss them around and pretend to be a ninja.
Yeah.
You can do that with coins as well.
Penny shuriken.
Okay.
Yeah. I think in Pathfinder you can actually do that with coin and just toss them as a ammunition to do damage.
As an improvised weapon, just chuck your copper in somebody's face.
Yeah, I think copper is like 1d4, silver is like 1d6, platinum is like
-1.
one.
Jesus.
Platinum
1d6 -1.
platinum is
Silver.
like one. What platinum is like 1d12 damage.
Oh, bull. You're telling me that my platinum piece hits like a great axe, in which case I'm rebuilding all my characters. I'm just going to build Meowth every time. That's what I'm hearing. Just cast Payday.
All right.
The worst.
We're getting
The
nowhere.
worst part is you're pretty much wasting money at that point.
I mean, just pick it up afterwards, right?
Yeah. All right. So I'm rolling a D4, seeing who's going first. Oh, I'm going first. Okay. So
Yeah.
I will go first, and then we will re-roll. So what we're going to do is, like we usually do, we're going to have one person go and highlight one monster they want to from each CR, and then the next person will go, and the next person will go, and then if we have time afterward, we will go and have some extra highlights from each of the CRs. So I rolled, and I end up going first, which was kind of I wanted other people to go. Since we're probably going to have time, I actually want to highlight. I want to highlight two, but we're not going to do that just yet. We're going to play by the rules, and the CR7 that I'm going to highlight is the Hound of Tindalos. So the Hound of Tindalos is described as a gaunt, long-limbed quadruped that has huge, soulless eyes and a toothy maw. The lean creature moves with a predatory grace. And I like these things because they have a very, very thematic way of going and doing what they do. They're very much Lovecraftian without being kind of eldritch horror-y. That's not really a word, but I'm using it. They don't have all those weird mouths everywhere or something like that. They're more structured and seeable as a physical creature, but they have interesting things going on with them. So they're not too shabby on their hit points for this particular CR. They've got nice saves, except in their will, which is a +8, but that's nothing to really sneer at, I guess. DR10 to magic means really nothing at this level, because most people should have a magic item, but they're immune to mind affecting effects, and they're immune to poison, which is handy. something that's also fairly common in this level. A bite of plus 15 and 2 claws at plus 15 should be able to hit fairly commonly. If they roll, if the player, if the creature rolls a 15, which is not unheard of or uncommon, then they're going to be hitting ACs of 30, which at level 7, that's respectable. They have a constant airwalk, so you're not just going to be able to. That wizard that tries to fly away may not get away. Doesn't matter if he flies away. They can at will a fog cloud, do invisibility, or locate creature, which can be handy, which is what you would kind of use these guys for. And they can have a dimensional anchor, discern location, and greater scrying, and a haste and a slow. So the haste is what would be really good because you don't have to have the save against that 16 DC, which is kind of low for this level. But that slow might come in handy if they get a jump on somebody. I like them thematically for their angled entry. They can move through dimensions in ways other creatures can't quite grasp. So they have kind of like stories from the Witch House with Lovecraft. They have that kind of feel going on for them. So they can do that, and can use greater teleport once per round as a swift action. That's not bad. That's phase spidery, and also phase shift 3 times a day is a standard action, and they do that by moving through those angles, and that means anywhere there's a door, anywhere there's where a floor meets a wall, anywhere there's an angle, they can get in. So even in a circular house where that wall meets that floor, there's an angle, and it could get in. And if you want to really scare a group of players, you tell them that something's hunting them, and then you tell them that it just kind of gets in there, and then they barricade the door and they do all that stuff, but it just kind of gets in there, and then it starts wrecking stuff because they're not. You can't really get around them getting in somewhere when they can phase shift in there, so that can be handy. And then I liked the ripping gaze, 5d6 slashing damage, 30 feet with a fort save of DC 18, so it's not a super high DC that someone's got to worry about. You can look at this creature's fort saves and see that it's not something that's going to be too hard on a level 7 player. And the creature that succeeds to the save is immune to the Hound's Gaze for 24 hours. So this is like a ranged thing. This is like it's using its claws at range, only better. So it's a pretty substantial creature if it's given the right setup. So I like it, especially for someone who's been doing a lot of summoning and hasn't been careful with their summoning. So if you've got a player that's not being careful with what he's summoning, or not following the in-universe rules or kind of ideas about summoning, or they're kind of on the fringe as a summoner, can definitely get that feeling of unease going when they start to have a Hound of Tindalos start running around. So that's my CR7. My CR8, I gotta go here real quick. I was told to make sure to mention. Well, we'll do the mentions when we do the mentions. Where was it? I'm probably going to go with one that I didn't know actually existed until when I was looking through these. It's called the Trapper. And the Trapper is basically like a mimic, but it's on the floor. So it looks like a nasty rug. It says the stone floor ripples and shakes as a toothy, gnashing maw opens in its center. and the edges of the room curl up and inward to reveal an underside of wriggling tendrils and fetid digestive juices. So it can look like not just a rug, but anything, any floor, it can look like that. And it's the female lurking rays called trappers are the masterminds of their race. So they're too large to fly, so they get the other ones to bring some stuff in there, or get them to kind of lead them in there. And you're looking all around when you're in a dungeon, but then all of a sudden the floor itself starts to rise up and try to eat you. That can be disturbing. And with a plus 25 to grapple, unless they've got freedom of movement on, it's going to be tough at level 7. So yeah, that's definitely one that I thought was a lot of fun. Just worth mentioning since we have the time, and worth a special highlight. And they have DR versus, except for piercing and slashing. You're going to get a lot of slashing, and you're going to get a lot of piercing, so that's not going to help you much. But that is that. But I just thought, as a creature that is thematic, if you're going into a dungeon and you don't have one of these in a mid to high level dungeon, these should be like a requirement for a mid to high level dungeon. But that's just my opinion, and that's my highlight for CR7 and 8. So let's roll again and see who goes next. 1. So Tommy, you are up.
Woo, it's Tommy. Okay, so mine, like I've been saying forever and ever, and I'm gonna just keep saying it because it's still relevant, especially like now we're at CR7, CR8, unless these guys are challenging a party of like 4 level 5s or something. And even then, if the 4 level 5s can build an optimized character, they won't be too challenged. But again, like CR becomes really wibbly wobbly and again, super arbitrary. That again, like by level 7, level 8, not only has everybody hit their stride, like I keep saying, but this is around the time where a lot of guides you'll read and a lot of like what I understand to be, I guess, public opinion in the Pathfinder world is like level 7, 8, 9, 10, 11 is where like the most fun in Pathfinder happens, because everything else that the characters gain, which I totally disagree with, but everything else the characters gain become just kind of like extra on top, and everybody already has what they need, and this, that, and the third. So, of course, these monsters can be used as encounters. There's nothing saying you can't, but this is going to be like, my 2 are a little more like in tune to the players, specifically the players that are by level 7 thinking about leadership, especially like your cavaliers, your paladins, hunters, blase, that like the time might have come for us to leadership in something a little bigger than like a bear or a wolf or something. Specifically, both of these monsters I'm talking about today are monsters that I myself at some point in time have used as a mount for sometimes a samurai, sometimes a cavalier, most of the time just leadership madness to grab as many people with spirited charge as possible. But neither here nor there. My level 7, to cut to the chase, is the Kirin. It has spell resistance, it has a breath weapon, it has telepathy out to 100 feet, so when the awakened cat is stealing from things and we don't want the paladin to know, we can keep secret. But inside jokes aside, what I like about these guys the most is a Kirin at CR7 casts spells as a 6th level sorcerer, but can also choose from the cleric spell list. So if you're playing a Kirin, this is also like for our cavalier or our samurai who might be like, okay, I need a new mount. I need something that can fly, because eventually like things are going to fly out of the way. Your spirited charge, you have to keep up. The Kirin can be built to suit, because it is a spellcaster that has access to like 2/5 of the spells in Pathfinder and pretty much all the good ones. Like, don't tell the witch I said that, I guess. But
Oh, we lost Tommy there for a moment. People probably having connection issues.
Good job, Tommy.
Yeah, good job. That was a quick drop off too. It wasn't like he started going robot. He just kind of boop dropped.
So while Tommy is taking care of that issue, so which one of us want to talk? to fill airtime.
All right, so I rolled. Joe, why don't you talk while Tommy's reconnecting?
Okay. My CR7. I don't know why it's not in the whatever in this place. D20PFSRD.com's bestiary. It's in like the NPC codex, or not in the NPC codex. No, it is, and the monster codex. I don't know why it's not in there. So I'm gonna paste it in. Hopefully that's it. Yeah, that's it. I'm gonna paste it in chat there. I've chosen the Gorthek, which actually Tommy was talking about mounts. This guy is a great mount for orcs. They can choose it if they have the Beast Rider feat. But Gortheks just by themselves are pretty cool animals. They are animals. They are neutral large. 18 AC, touch of 8, flat-footed of 18. So they're one of those guys who almost gets a bonus when they go flat-footed, which I think is hilarious. It's one of my favorite features. They have a decent amount of hit points just right out of the book. When maxed, never not max. They have a DR5 over everything, which is crazy. They have a pretty good fort save. Their reflex and will are nothing to write home about, but they're not bad. What's really cool about it is it's got that gore plus 16. So I like it. It's gonna hit, especially at level 7. And if we're swinging over a little bit, we're gonna definitely hit. And it's got an amazing plus to damage. I don't even know like where is it getting that from? But yeah, it's dealing 16 damage. I think it's getting it from a part of its strength.
That is correct. Strength 32. That would be a modifier of like 16ish roughly.
No. That would be a modifier of 12 or no. Yeah, 12. No. Crap, I am tripping. 11. It would be a modifier of 11, and half of 11 is 5 because he is dealing it with basically a two-handed weapon. So that's plus 16 damage. That's why he's adding 16. I'm hurrying up, Tommy. We know you disconnected, but he has a powerful charge. Yeah, which doubles the D6 that he's rolling, and he has a trample with a DC of 25. So it looks like your rogues are going to be getting out of that, but not your fight. Well, maybe your fighters. Your wizards are definitely screwed if they get caught in front of a Gorthek. He's got an amazing strength. I've made an animal lord Gorthek, Gorthek animal lord orc, which was just he has 50 strength. I always say, well, I don't always say, but I realized last time I was playing him that 50 strength is almost Cthulhu level strength. People probably go insane and tear their own flesh off in the presence of Chirjong.
I wonder physically what would 50 strength look like. That would be more than Hercules strong.
Yeah, it's more than Regathiel, it's more than Black Butterfly, and it's more than what's her name? The weird the other one in the 6th bestiary. Tommy probably knows it, but he's gone again. Pretty good CMB. He gets a plus 20 to Bull Rush or Sunder. His CMD is pretty good. He's at the point where CMD is like, if you're gonna try and trip him, no, you're not. You're really not. He has awesome blow, great fortitude. He's got, for some reason, Bull Rush and Sunder. I imagine that's just because of flavor, and he's got power attack, which is, I don't know why that's not calculated into his attack. That really should be, because he's got a base attack bonus plus 6, so that's going to be a plus 19 to hit, plus 15 or plus 15 to hit, plus 19 to damage. And his only skill is perception plus 12, so he's not very smart, but he'll probably see the people who aren't hiding themselves. And Tommy's not back. You want me to move on to CR8?
Yeah, go ahead.
All right. I don't know. I really hope this wasn't Tommy's. I feel like he probably was going to choose.
Oh,
it.
Tom,
we can. He's back.
Speak of Asmodeus.
The devil. Hello, Tommy. He's just looking at his screen intently, clicking.
Sorry, I died horribly.
Okay.
Oh,
My
it
bad.
looked like one of my monsters I will be covering probably killed you.
Oh God. So are we in the middle of somebody else's turn? Because I pretty much said everything I need to say about the Kirin. I don't know what got through and what didn't, but
You were
What?
You were saying how useful they were as a mount.
is that all that went through?
No,
Yeah.
we got
Yeah.
Oh man, because I was going for like 10 minutes.
Oh well.
Oops.
We got that. They
I
were
mean,
good
we
for
got-
being a mount, especially since they can cover half the spells, spell lists available, stuff like that. So anything.
They're good at keeping
Yeah, that's pretty
secrets
much-
from the paladin.
Yeah, they are. That's pretty much everything. They have spell resistance. They have fly speed. They have gaseous form. They have an imperial variant, which is like you up their CR, up their hit dice. They get extra spell like abilities. Their breath weapon gets better.
Fly by attack.
I think their fly speed is also magical. Yeah, that's a fly by attack. Is just give them spirited charge. No, probably don't give them spirited charge, but that's an entirely different story. Again, I just really like them because they have a lot of the bases covered, and like not only like if I'm taking this as a mount, it's really strong, but it's really strong on its own as an encounter. Like maybe you have a party of evil characters and you're going to challenge them with this thing, or maybe like you can always just flip the script and make it like it has been corrupted. Now it is evil Kirin, and it comes and attacks you because again, it has a lot of bases covered, and it can target a lot of different saves, which is it makes it all the stronger because somebody is going to have a weak spot somewhere. My CR8 is a little on the different side. Like it's from I never actually used this as a mount, but I used the normal one, which I think is like a CR5 or 6. I don't remember. This thing appears in the Isle of the Shackles splat book. You may know it as the fork-tailed wyvern, but I'm going to call it by its real name, a Shox wyvern. I, for 1 to 20, ran an elf gestalt hunter fighter on the back of a wyvern, and it was all the more fun because the primal companion hunter archetype before its errata, you got all the evolution points of a summoner to slap on your animal companion, which means at the end of the day, my wyvern had like 18 tails or something because you had to take them in 1 point increments. So I don't really need anything else. Here's a tail. Now it has a stinger, and it's just like that forever. But a Shox wyvern already has that. Essentially, think like it's the wyvern, the CR5, CR6 wyvern that we all know and love, just like on roids. Essentially, this thing has a swim speed. It can hold its breath, so like if you need to go underwater with it, you can. It has a breath weapon, which is like a cloud of noxious gas that deals 66 points of fire damage with a DC 19 reflex save for half. Not all that super crazy, but it also has a glitter dust effect on it. So like its glitter dust prevents us from going invisible. I think it gives a bonus to hit as well. I'm not entirely sure because I've never actually cast it, but it's something along those lines. A Shox wyvern's tail is bifurcated, which means it has 2 stings on its own, which means the poison can trigger twice, which means the poison DC can tick up that much faster. And in addition, the bite still has grab. What else does it have on it? It's still got rake. It's still got all the stuff that a wyvern normally has, but a wyvern is only like CR5. So this guy is a little more like it's more pumped up. It has more stuff it can do. And for a flavor, like the flavor aspect of it, these guys exist to serve. I never like played a character who worshipped Dahak, but there was a big Opsu versus Dahak theme in a campaign that I was in recently. Dahak being the chaotic evil dragon god, and Opsu being the lawful good like metallic dragon god, and eventually like their war will consume Galarion, that kind of thing. These guys are supposed to be like wyverns that have been like magicked into what they have. What else do they have? I think they might have spell resistance. They have spell resistance, which I don't think the vanilla wyvern does. They have a little bit of fire resistance. Dragons are immune to paralysis and sleep. And I think CR7, CR8 is when like all the other dragons start to come into the full here, like where we get not just like here's a wormling, go for it, or we start getting like young green dragons or young white, even maybe like young black dragons. I'm not sure, but that's the popular way to stop something in most parties is like the witch will have the slumber hex, the wizard will have hold person, And this is around the time that they have to like move out of sleep for the most part, because things will have greater than 5 hit dice. But this guy and all dragons are immune to sleep and paralysis, so it shuts off what most people would probably say are the best ways to like quote unquote play Pathfinder. Certainly, probably the best way to play a spellcaster is just paralyze and then let the guy with the big sword go coup de grace. Again, this guy is immune, so if you choose him as your mount, you don't have to ever worry about like, oh, my mount's paralyzed. Ooh, crash. By that same token, if this is one of the big bads, again, the party can't do that to a Shock's Wyvern, or any Wyvern for that matter. Again, both of these are kind of like monuments to my nostalgia because they were both used as mounts, but they are still powerful. They are still like on their own. They're great, and I think they're a lot of fun. So those are my two for this evening.
Okie dokie. And I do want to point out that it shows here on the thing that it's immune to magic paralysis. So poisons could still do it, but not magic. So
when it comes to creatures like that, you need to read up what they are immune to, because the wording of certain effects, it is quite iffy if it affects something. Like how draconic creatures have immunity to paralyze, but not paralyzed to certain things. And not all paralyzed have the same origin, such as ghoul paralyzed may be immune to certain type of creatures, but not another creature paralyzed to another creature.
true.
That is true.
Okay, Joe. So you had done your CR7. Let's go ahead and let you do your DR8. That's CR8, and then we can go to Donald.
DR8. Ooh.
Yeah.
All right. My CR8 is actually a bit of Tommy was bringing up the nostalgia, and I actually had chosen something a bit more of a throwback than that. And it's always I don't know. We've stopped saying it recently, but anytime someone starts doing something bad, Tommy would sometimes bring up this little phrase, which was "Aranies start flying overhead."
Hey, you did that first.
Yeah, I did, but that was an actual description, and then Tommy started doing it. But as I just said, the CR8 creature I've chosen was the Aranies Devil, the Furies. Just start out here, they have a pretty good AC, 23. They have a really nice amount of hit points if we're maxing it out for a CR8. They've got True Seeing all the time. That's nice. Someone's got a Ring of Invisibility. Get out of here. See in Darkness. I mean, that's always nice. They've got a pretty good initiative score for most, like out of the bestiary creatures. They've got a pretty decent initiative score and a pretty good perception check as well. They've got DR5 over good. They've got really nice saves for just straight out of the bestiary. They're immune to fire and poison, and they resist acid and cold. They have a spell resistance. Excuse me. They have a fly speed, which is always nice, considering that they are just a fallen angel. Their weapons, pretty nice. They have a +1 longsword, so they're getting over some people's DRs. They have +15 and +10 to hit, and they deal a decent amount of damage, and they have an extended crit range. They have a +1 flaming composite longbow. That's pretty nice. That does 14, 14, 9 to hit, and adds 6 on their D8s. And they added a D6 fire. And they also have this entangling rope, which is pretty nice when you consider the fact that if there's someone alone, and they have this chance to entangle, which if you scroll down a bit, it's a 50-foot long rope that entangles opponents of any size as an animate rope spell. It's treated like it's caster level 16th. The DC is 20 when you're dealing with that animate rope. They can hurl their rope up to 30 feet, no range penalty. And this functions for only the Aranies, so you don't have to worry about it being thrown against them. Where is it? going back up. But this rope's really good against someone who would be if they're separated from the rest of the group, or if there's a couple of people, because these they just have to hit their touch armor class, and then there's a DC 20 to get out of that. But you're probably going to grab someone if they're not paying attention. They have constant true seeing. They have at will fear, greater teleport, minor magic, unholy blight, and then once per day they can summon 2 bearded devils with a 50% chance. So that's pretty nice. They have combat reflexes. No one ever gets that in the bestiary. That's really nice. Dodge mobility, which is crazy in my opinion. And they have a few shot archery feats as well. Their skills are pretty nice with that bluff check, the intimidate check. Their stealth is okay. And they have telepathy, so they don't have to speak to communicate. I mean, they're really nice flavored. They don't have to speak to communicate. They've got pretty nice things to hit. They've got a pretty okay armor class. They've got pretty okay HP. And again, who doesn't like a fallen angel? That's nice. Everyone likes it.
I almost picked them too. They're pretty sweet.
The Inaries, I actually used them in a game I GM'd once as a troop unit, and I had a lot of fun GMing them properly.
I use them as a way of keeping a player from doing things he shouldn't do. Which is why we always say when you're doing something you shouldn't do in one of my games, Aaron needs to circle overhead.
If a player in my game is getting off track, I say, "Are you sure you want to do that? There's a imp following you." And generally, the players know that they should focus on the task at hand, or else the imp.
There's 2 times.
Sorry,
I said.
Okay, so if the players get off track too much, I can have the imp teleport the player to a undesirable place to remind them, you need to get back on task or else. So I guess it's my turn.
Yes,
so
it is.
the two creatures I'd be picking, one of them I used in a game, and they're both undead, which you can play them anywhere for the most part. The CR7 monster I'd be using, it is a totem mask. The great thing about the totem mask is this creature is not that great nor strong. Relatively okay AC of 20, hit points 85, saves across pretty good. Immunity to undead, resist 20 cold, and this creature, if it used properly with a bunch of undead servants, this could easily wreck a party if they fail their saves, especially when it comes to the charisma drain and then the shape flesh ability. If you want to hurt a party pretty badly, use that enough and you can kill them effectively by molding their flesh to cover all their parts pretty much. Also, if you're running a Lovecraftian murder mystery game and you need to know why people are disappearing and people are not acting normally, a totem mask can easily fit that role pretty well, have pretty good social skills, and they can take a form of anyone that they have consumed or have used their shape flesh ability on. So, generally, the totem mask, if you use this creature by itself, it is not that powerful, but with undead and other lesser, weaker minions, a totem mask is a pretty powerful creature if used properly.
Yeah, and who doesn't want to scare their players by having them die by suffocation because their flesh was molded over their nose and mouth?
It's true. This creature, you can have a lot of fun. With the totem mask if you use them properly, such as replacing NPCs that the party do not know yet, and have the totem mask lead the party to their death and kill the party to use their bodies for the totem mask evil plans as the evil minion. That's a lot of fun just for one creature. And I did play this creature out in a murder mystery game that I GM'd for a one-on-one game once. And then the second creature I'd be picking, it is the Bone Storm monster that if you have a high enough character, such as level 20 Necromancer or Cleric, you can make this creature if you want to. This is a swarm monster, and it's going to be hitting you most of the time. Its AC is not that great at this point. 23 saves are okay, except for Fortitude save. Hit point is okay, 72. This creature is going to hit everything within its area, doing about 3d6 physical damage and 3d6 unholy damage. So that creature, if it's used properly, it can lead to a potential TPK, and it have a fantastic fly speed of 50 feet. It does take up 10 feet, so if you get this creature in an area, you can easily do a lot of damage in a short amount of time, and it's only take a short amount of time and bad saves to kill a party. This creature, if you use it properly in a battlefield where there is a lot of dead creatures, it can continuously heal itself. So for medium creatures, it's 5 hit points, large 10, huge 20. So this creature, the players don't want it close to anything dead because this thing can infinitely heal itself in theory. And also, if there is a size difference in the party on the battlefield, any creature that is not large, you need to make a save or you be flying around and it's storm doing damage, which is very nice. So if it's small, you're going to be flying and land somewhere. Medium, you'll be knocked down, and large, you're not going to be moving all that much because you're too big and heavy.
True.
And plus, this creature combined with other undead, this is a fun encounter for everyone pretty much, and it have SR. So by this point, as long as you get over
that's pretty good.
SR20, so as long as you get over a 12 on a D20, for a full caster, you can easily bypass its SR easily enough, and it have the typical undead, swarm traits, and immune to cold. So put this creature in its natural environment, such as a cold-themed battlefield, and it's immune to most things that you would find in that environment, except for anything that is not cold.
Yeah, I could definitely see that.
And plus, this is a
somebody.
And plus, this is a hurricane of bone and death, pretty much. So you cannot go wrong with that. Plus, especially if you're playing heavy metal in the background, even better. I could picture
Iron Maiden in the background.
Yeah, I could picture a undead rock band playing something in the background while the Bone Swarm is collecting bodies to make more groupies for the band.
All right. Well, I guess that's one way to do it. I guess if you wanted to do Riders on the Storm, that would be the storm that would be blowing. So, there's that.
Also, this creature could, in theory, be used as a mount for a undead band to travel around.
I don't know. I don't know about that one.
It would be difficult to use it as a mount for the undead party, but it would be quite a fun monster for its not combat uses, potentially. But yeah, these two undead monsters I use, they're quite fun if you use them properly. And generally, I like undead monsters as they are pretty nifty, as not all undead are the same, and you have a lot of variation between different type of undead. You have the undead that need to consume life to exist, undead that do not need to consume life to exist, and you have shades. So undead, you have a wide variety of different type of undead to use.
There is a lot of variety that you find in the certain categories. All right. Any other remarks you have for your two picks, Donald?
Besides for those two, not really. They're fun monsters if you know how to use them properly, plus train.
Okie dokie. And yeah, and putting him in the right terrain would definitely make that thing a nasty little bit to deal with. So Kane and Colin from the Interplanar Crossroads both wanted me to mention something for them. Kane wanted me to mention the black pudding from CR7.
Very, very nice.
Yep. So you got your black pudding, black amorphous quivering thing. It doesn't have any int, but it's going to seek out food. Black amorphous blob piles up on itself a quivering mound of midnight sludge that glistens darkly before surging forward. It's got its normal stuff going on for the sludges and oozes, like the blind sight and stuff. Probably I would consider something more as a hazard than necessarily a strict encounter, though this thing does have a lot of hit points for this level, and it has ooze traits, so that means it's not going to be affected by all weapons equally. It can crawl up walls and stuff like that with its suction ability, its special quality there under statistics, and it's got acid that it secretes that are going to dissolve organic material and metal, which means your stuff is not safe. So this is that thing where the same button that gets pushed by the rust monster, this thing is jamming that button down hard, because it's not just getting rid of metal items, it's getting rid of organic material too, and you can lose all your stuff. If you want to tick off your players, you take away their stuff.
I have an interesting story about a black pudding that I actually experienced as a player. In a wizard's lair we were in, this wizard liked to use black puddings as his personal garbage disposal units. And he would put them in a bottom endless pit and throw his prisoners and garbage down the chute to be consumed.
Yeah, they'd be trouble to try and keep in there though, because they can crawl out.
Yeah, true. If you injure them enough to reduce their size in a hole, in theory they're manageable at the very least if you control them properly. And plus, I think there are magic items that you can control oozes with.
Probably. But it does have that split ability where if you start trying to cut it, it's going to split into two. And eventually it can't, but it will split into two. So, Kane wanted me to mention the black pudding. He also wanted me to mention one of the creatures that I like quite a bit, Wolf in Sheep's Clothing, which is a CR8 creature. And a small forest animal sits motionless atop a worn stump, and then the stump's face peels open into a maw of sharp teeth. So, basically, it's a little stump-shaped creature that goes and it tries to lure in food by having his corpse there. So it's definitely something that is interesting, and it can infest a creature with its eggs too. So then it can go off and do its own thing, and it fail its saves, and then all of a sudden it just starts bursting out. It's one of those creatures that I like to see used. They're kind of oddball, kind of that's kind of weird, but it's still cool.
There are very few monsters that have the power like that to implant eggs in any creature.
Yep. It's kind of like an intellect devourer, Joe, which is on this CR as well. But it doesn't have to eat the brain.
I was gonna have that as an honorable mention.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And the last one that I was told to make sure to mention was the Sandpoint Devil, because the Sandpoint Devil, or as it's called by some listings, the Devil's Steed or the Demon Steed. Let me see. Devil Steed.
It-
It's a CR8.
Is that in Rise of the Moon Lords?
Yes. If you want to see it in action, go to the episode titled "Heroes in a Cart" on in a Planar Crossroads, and you can see it in action. They had some fun with that, and I didn't even use its Dimension Door or Phantasmal Killer. This thing was just having some fun chasing some food down, but it's definitely one that can swing plenty high enough and plenty hard enough in its own CR, as well as a little higher given the chance, because man, its bay is not that spooky. It's a DC 19 and they faced it way too early to be fighting it, but its Hellfire Breath, it's doing 10d6 points of fire damage with a reflex 20 to half. Now your rogue may get it, and a Dexy fighter may get it, but your paladin, that's a little more up in the air if his charisma's not as high as it should be, or something like that. So, yeah, it's one that's fun, and its breath imparts a curse as well. So, definitely a fun one. All right, let's see how much time we have. We've got just a few minutes.
It's been like an hour since we began.
Yeah, we've got just a few minutes. So, CR7, does anybody have anything there that they want to make sure that they call out to, or say, hey, use some of these in your campaign type thing?
I have 3 monsters that I like to give a honorable mention.
All right, name them off quick.
The classic Medusa. If you use its Petrifying Gaze, it's pretty powerful at this CR. The Oni Ogre Mage, it's pretty good for a mage and for a melee and range character. And then the Soulbound Mannequin, just for a NPC that you can use, or potentially as a encounter by itself, just for its theme and lore behind Soulbound Mannequins.
Mm-hmm. What about you, Joe?
Okay. I just wanted to bring up a couple. The Intellect Devourer from... Oh, is this... Yeah, he's in CR7? Is he? No, wait, he's CR8. I'm sorry.
That's okay. Intellect
well, whatever. The Megalania, giant, humongous lizard thing with poison that does dex damage. And where is he? The Nonet, tentacles deal confusion, which is pretty nice, and I really like Proteans. Tommy can attest to that as well.
Tommy can attest to that as well.
All right.
And that's really all I had.
What about you, Tommy? Any special mentions from you in CR7 or 8?
The only other special mention I can think of off the top of my head is at CR7, the Chimera. Again, because I used it as a mount, it's not as crazy as some of the other things, though it does get 5 attacks. But one thing that I like about it is, again, this guy can be tailor-made to suit your purposes, because in Pathfinder, in D&D, in fantasy, I guess, by and large, like in general, the Chimera has a dragon head. And I guess like we'd be totally wrong if we didn't say again that like CR7, CR8 is when like young, chromatic, metallic, and like maybe not the red dragon, but like the lesser dragons, you start seeing younger versions of them. But yeah, the Chimera, technically you're supposed to roll a d10 to determine what color the dragon head on the Chimera is. But again, as a GM or as somebody who's taking, I think the actual feat's called like Monstrous Leadership or something like that, to get a Chimera companion, I see no reason why you can't pick and choose with that. I also see no reason why you should be limited to the chromatics. This is BCR 1 where the Chimera was printed, but since then we've had Imperial dragons, primal dragons, outer dragons, dragons that live in like dreams and stuff. As a bestiary 6, they're doing dragons for the outer planes, which is pretty sweet. And just like, again, it's tailor made to suit your needs. You just slap that dragon head on to determine the nature of the breath weapon.
Mm-hmm.
It's not super crazy like a lot of stuff, but it does have 5 attacks and a breath weapon. And just like flavor wise, I really like chimeras. I used them once. That was the first like big bad thing I ever used in a 3.5 game. So it's just kind of, again, striking at the nostalgia heartstrings here.
Okie dokie. Anything for CR8?
For 8, not really. Again, this is where like I think the young brass dragon is CR8, the young green dragon. Well, I have my bestiary one open right here. So young gold dragon is CR11 because he's important, but a young copper dragon is CR8, a young brass dragon is 7. So by that logic, I'm going to guess green. Yeah, a young green dragon is CR8, and these guys probably have the most attacks you're going to find, unless like you have something with evolution points with a bite, 2 claws, 2 wings, and a tail slap. There's also no mention of like in 3.5 how you had the space, reach, and then face. There's nothing saying the green dragon or like whatever has however many natural attacks can't focus them in on one dude. Also, these guys cast like sorcerers. Also, these guys are flat immune to paralysis and sleep. Also, they have breath weapons. Also, like all of the dragons in Pathfinder, as they grow, they get fancy special abilities, which help you like tailor make them to your game. Again, by young, you don't see a whole lot of like the crazy stuff, but they are still there and they are still relevant.
Indeed. All right. So for CR7, I wanted to make sure to call out the Azura Ahukite, which is basically a kind of like conjoined twin demons or something like that can swirl past and they can't be flanked. So those are handy. Great for making a good encounter with. There's the Budite, or Budette, however you want to say it, pops up in this CR, and they can be kind
Land
of
shark.
for the land shark pops up here, and it can be quite nasty for those small creatures that get caught in its bite. The Suspira Daemon, let me make sure I got the right remarks on that one. It is that's right, it's freaky looking for one thing, and if you're wanting something thematic, it can suffocate people in half the time. So if that's something, especially if you know your players well, or you know your players' PCs have that fear of suffocation or things like that, a really good way to elicit responses from them on more than just
I am terrified of drowning.
So see, it would feel like you were drowning in air. You just couldn't get your breath. That's freaky. So
the worst part, they're the suffocation spell casters can pick up, so that's another fun way for NPC villains to cause fear in players.
Level 5 spell literally become Darth Vader.
I find your lack of faith disturbing. A couple more where the Drider pops up in CR7, which is a wonderful creature to use against your players. Because
also a terrible play on words.
Yeah.
Also, the Drider can make a very enjoyable playable race if you want to have a lot of RP points for monster races.
That's like a 32 RP creature or something like that.
It's a pretty hardcore RP creature. The Doulahan is actually quite interesting because the Doulahan automatically imparts qualities to its weapon, if I remember right. Yes, it has Culling Blade, which immediately gives its weapon, any slashing weapon it uses, a +1 d6 of cold damage, and it gains the Keen property. So, say that it is a Dullahan that has been around a long time, it has dropped its +1 Keen longsword in exchange for something like the Elven Scimitar or something along those lines. And now it's doing ride-by attacks with its scimitar at a increased crit range. So that would be neat.
I prefer to give my Delahans lances and put them. I forgot I did this, but put them on like all the players on like a giant. Think like the like seventh level, like the seventh gym in Pokemon where you have to go through the ice passage, and every game you're pushing the rocks around so you can slide about. I did that with a bunch of Delahans once, and it was sweet.
Yeah, sounds fun. The last one that I want to mention from CR7 is the Hellcat. And I mention it for the same reason that I mentioned Lurker in Light last time, because they're invisible in bright light, in daylight. In just regular old light, they are literally invisible. You have to get them in the dark to see them. That's a way to throw off your players. And that's a Hellcat. That's not a good creature or even a neutral creature. It is a creature that wants to hunt and eat them. So it's going to be sneaky, like the Lurker in Light would.
Another interesting thing from the Inner Sea guidebook for the gods, if you're playing a Asmodean summoner, one of the unique summon creatures is Hellhound at Summon Monster 2.
Yes.
And then plus you get to Yes. And then Asmodean summoners, you get to summon a Cerberus, Summon Monster 4, and then Beater Devils with the Summon Monster 5. So being a devil worshipper, happy to benefit at times for unique devils to summon, which I will eventually get to summon them in the Lordly Caliber game.
Yeah, you will.
All right.
It is. I need to find the right moment to have my moment to shine with them.
So with CR8, getting to that, I have used an animate dream quite effectively. Its save is a 20 for its putting them to sleep and affecting them with its effects. So it's one that's going to be able to hit a lot of people, be able to be useful that way, especially if it goes hunting at night when people are asleep. Because then it only has to affect one. And I used it to create an entire dream sequence, which was fun. There's the Behir and the Bodak, both of which are useful. The Behir because it's got lots of legs, you can't trip it, lots of stuff it can do. But the Bodak is the undead that is quite scary when used appropriately. Cold Rider is another one that's used can be used quite well because it doesn't have any problems charging through ice and snow, which your other chargers are affected by terrain unless they're flying. And even if they're not flying, if there's a blizzard going around, they're not going to be flying very long. So when this guy attacks in the middle of a blizzard unaffected by the cold, yeah. Daughter of the Dead or Daughter of Urgathoa, whichever listing you're looking at, quite effective creature. Denizen of Leng is a very cool creature to use thematically because they are denizens of Leng. They know how to get around in the realm of dreams. Quite useful for possibly affecting a certain psychic and a certain Emeralda in a certain Lordly Caliber game.
Cough, cough. Maybe use the Lenga,
Langhounds.
Yeah, Lenga spiders. Cough, cough. Maybe.
Xander has a lot bigger problems than those guys. Joe will probably be able to sniff out what I'm using because I used it in another game and it didn't pan out quite the way I wanted it to, so I just kind of ported it over here. I haven't he'll probably figure it out eventually. Sarah probably will too.
There you go. Something that's fairly thematic is the half human, half scorpion things called the Jertublalu, Jertublilu, Blilu,
Close enough.
something
Scorpion folk.
like that. Jertublilu. I'm not sure how that's pronounced. Hell wasp swarms are very, very for affecting some players because they can really start to wear some people down. And it's an intelligent swarm, which you don't see much. You don't see many intelligent swarms, but it is one. So definitely something worth looking at if you're wanting to have that kind of intelligent swarm going around and affecting things. The Lamia matriarch can be a big hassle because of just how many attacks she gets and how well she uses those attacks. And definitely a creature that's able to really work through a lot of the resources of the party, especially since she can do haste 4 times a day. That's not bad. She gets spells and she gets that. She casts haste on herself. Take off some of the other stuff and take off some of the other spells here that aren't quite as useful for you, and then put on some self buffs. She can start to get pretty nasty.
The Lamia matriarch, if you want to make them more durable, give them gear to increase their AC a bit more.
There's also the Marag if you're wanting some kind of undead thing, especially if you're wanting an undead thing that you can cause a quick plague with. A quick plague of an undead. So the Marung is good for that. What was I bringing up? Oh, those funky looking spider things if you want something that's not quite a spider, that's actually an aberration and not a vermin type thing, but looks like a spider, the Neththalogu. The Neththalogu are good at that because they look freaky, they collect brains, and they are really smart at night. They're at 19, and their physical scores can back up the checks that their brains are writing. So there is that to look at. And I would be remiss if I did not talk at least mention the Rakshasa Marai, because if you're wanting something that has rays like a beholder, the Rakshasa Marai, the Marai variant of the Rakshasa, has that, because they have energy bolts, and once every D4 rounds, as a standard action, and it provokes an attack of opportunity, a Marai's 6 snake arms can each spit a bolt of energy to a maximum range of 60 feet. Each bolt deals 1d8 points of damage, and has an additional effect if the target fails to resist the DC of 19 Fortitude save, as summarized below. So that's going to be cold, giving sickened, fire, doing a burn, acid, doing nausea, electricity, doing a stagger, the sonic, doing a stunned, and a force, doing a knock prone. That could really change the flow of a battle if it hits and everybody misses, because everybody rolls bad sometimes, and if it focuses its bolts on one person, they're having to roll 6 fortitude saves. That's pushing your luck, even as a fighter or a monk or a paladin with good fort saves. That you're starting to push your luck there. So I like it for that. And those are all the honorable mentions that I have. There's more. This particular CR, the CRs that we're getting into, seem to have a lot of really good creatures. Last time had some really good creatures too. So.
One thing to add. Looking at all the bestiary entries, most of the monsters you'll be encountering, you can easily find majority of the monsters being somewhere between CR8 to CR12-ish. That is where most of the monsters are going to be. And then after like CR12, there'll be less monsters as you go down the tree for CRs.
All right. So, does anybody have any closing remarks before we go ahead and sign off?
Yes. Have fun as a GM using your monsters at CR7 and 8 wisely, as you have a wide selection of monsters to choose, and they can easily hit above their CR if you use them properly. So have fun with them.
Joe, Tommy, anything you guys want to say before we sign off?
Nope, I'm good.
Not really. Like you guys are saying, this is kind of where everything opens up. There's a lot of really sweet options here. There's another one of those CR brackets where we could go on for a million years talking about, like, no one said the Barghest. Nobody said there's probably a lot of like megafauna and dinosaurs we missed. Treants can make more treants, and that's always fun. But pretty much like
But they can
this
make
is
one
where
tree.
everything starts to open up. This is where there's a lot of stuff you can pull off once you've got here, and it's okay to stop. Like, I mean, I don't pull punches as a GM. Sometimes I do. It depends on the party. But around like 7 and 8, like I keep saying, this is where people are going to figure out what their class does. And party's got its synergy. Everybody's got their powerful spells. There's a lot of stuff that can do a lot of really gross things. So I would say once we hit here, once the party's cool with everything, like, this is where we stop pulling the punches and start just smacking them in the face with the monsters. And there are definitely a lot in 7 and 8 that you can use for sure.
All right. Well, I think we covered quite a bit enough for today. We are a little over an hour. Hopefully you guys won't mind hearing us talk about all those different things. Thank you for watching, and thank you for tuning in to the End of Planar Crossroads. Be sure to tune in. Be sure to... I'll try to broadcast. We'll see how this broadcast went on Twitch. Try to broadcast next week on Twitch as well, if we can, if my connection held up to be able to do it. If not, I apologize. We'll just have to go with YouTube. But next time we'll be talking and posting it over on Black Dragon Gaming, where we'll be using a creature from... Each of us will use a creature from one of these CRs to make an encounter for you guys to take and use in your games. So that's everything that we have. If you want some further announcements, you can check back at the front of the video. This has been the Planar Crossroads and Black Dragon Gaming, talking in Around the Hearth about CR creatures from CR7 to 8. As always, have a great day, God bless, and enjoy. Bye.
Bye.